You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Mr. Kevin Chenard.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I said that correctly, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
All right, just making sure because as soon as I said it, I was like, you done messed it up. You done messed it up.
To be honest, a lot of people get it wrong the first time because it's a French name. I am French. So the D, we don't really pronounce it when we say it in French, but in English, you do say it. So
So Chenard.
exactly.
And you kind of make it a little bit more nasally too, because that's how the French kind of do it. They hold it up in their nose a little bit.
Yeah, kind of.
I like that. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Kevin, and if you want, what you do professionally.
Yeah, sure. I'm 33 years old. I actually work in the hospitality industry. I work at a five-star hotel here in Gatineau, Quebec, Canada. It's called the Hilton Lac Leamy. To be honest, I've only been working there about 5 years. Before that, I used to do all sorts of stuff. I did construction for a couple of years. I did security for quite a few years, and it's been kind of like a dream job. I've always really loved working in how do you say it there? Just working with people, client services, and I started to kind of get the bug when I was working security because I always worked in an environment that was rich with like visitors. So I always had like a direct contact with the clientele. And just working in a hotel is actually quite amazing. You get to see all sorts of different faces, where people come from. You hear amazing stories.
It's funny because your life is the complete opposite of where my life went. I left the hotel business to go join a security position.
Oh, okay, nice.
I do like, all right. So what do you do at the hotel? Are you a houseman?
I actually do reservations. See, for us, it's not um, really cut and clear on like you have just this one job, you do this. I actually branch out and do quite a lot of different things at my position. I take care of the clientele mostly on calls. I'm not like a front desk clerk. I'm actually more of like in the back you don't see type of person.
Yeah, I know. We had
Uh,
reservations at my work. I honestly, that's a job I would have preferred over the one I had. I had a houseman position, and that's like the grunt work that's taking out the trash, that's going into all these rooms, stripping all the rooms. That's like the people in reservations would call us and tell us to bring up supplies to the people. But it's like, you guys don't, I mean, you guys are good because you guys can handle over the phone, but we have to do it in person. And a lot of people in person are just dicks. It's like,
I it's
damn.
it's crazy. It's funny because you work at the same job, but it's a completely different world. Just from being upfront to being out back, people will react to you different ways. They'll talk to you different ways, whether that be positive or negative. Um, and I mean, the big thing for us at our job is that we promote so much teamwork because without every single individual, nothing runs. And it's a mentality that I hold really strong, because it's just that if you don't have that one person taking a phone call, there's nothing coming in. If you don't have that one person working up front, you don't get people going in. So I mean, it works from the cleaning of the rooms to picking up the trash to calling the client. It's all part of one intricate system.
Yeah, when we would have some housekeepers not show up, it would mess up our whole thing. Instead of a housekeeper having 11 rooms on one floor, she'd have like 22 rooms, or it would be split. They'd have to go on multiple floors to cover all the rooms from the housekeeper that was missing. And yeah, guest reservations. It was, I remember this one time. I got a call. Obviously, guest services calls housekeeping and says, like, hey, reservations to housekeeping, room 602 needs like some more towels or something. Well, this is at like 8:30. Housekeeping comes in at 9. So they're supposed to wait till 9 before they start making calls or telling us to do things because we just write it down. There's no way we can get anything to them. And this one elderly woman called, was like, I need 2 rolls of toilet paper. And as soon as that call came over the thing, I was like, this lady's probably on the toilet. You know, she needs toilet paper. I gotta help somebody out. Even if the housekeeper's not here, I gotta go up there and bring it to her. So I run up there, hand her 2 things of toilet paper, and she's like, "Can I also get some towels and can I get my sheets made and all these types of things?" I'm like, "The housekeeper comes in at 9. As soon as she gets here, I'll make sure to let her know that she does your room first." And she goes, "Okay, thank you." And then I walk away. Bam! Not even a minute later, when I get back down to the laundry room, it's another call saying from that same room that they want their sheets and everything changed. I'm like, I just told her that the housekeeper's coming in at 9. And then she was like, "Oh, yeah, she wants soap too." I'm like, "Okay." So I go up there with a bar of soap. "Here you go. When are you going to change my sheets? When are you going to do this?" "Ma'am, I told you at 9 o'clock when the housekeeper gets here, I'll make sure she does your room first. Okay." "Okay. Thank you." Shut the door. Another fucking call, dude. I was like, "Are you kidding me? What is happening? Like, does she have dementia? I have no clue." But that's what they do. Like, when you go to a hotel, you have total disrespect for everything because it's like you're on vacation. I mean, I get it. We live in a beach town, so we get nothing but college kids that come in. And I mean, you'll find pizza in the sheets. You'll find buffalo wing sauce on the walls. We've had TVs broken. We've had windows smashed. We've had walls punctured with holes. I think the whole time I was there, the weirdest things happened during the winter. We've had a total, probably the time I worked there for like 3 years. I witnessed 4 people die.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty extreme, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like I can't say that I've never had things happen like that because I have actually on a 3-year period to start with, when I was first introduced to the hotel business, if you will. I actually worked the security at the hotel. Um, so I mean, you'd think people it's funny because people think that just because you're a five-star hotel that you're going to get the most amazing clientele, and oh, it's going to be all these rich folks and they have like they have a certain standard and blah blah blah. And it's actually quite the opposite. You get a mentality that, well, I can just barely scrape up enough coin to maybe stay there for a night, but at least I'm gonna live the high life. That you got that mentality of some people coming in that like, oh well, I've got like 200-300 bucks to spend, and I'm gonna stay at this super fancy hotel room and impress my girlfriend or this girl or this guy that I just met, blah blah blah. So we get absolutely everything, and I mean absolutely everything and anyone. Um, One thing that we have here, that a lot of people that come visit us don't actually know is our hotel is linked with the casino. Okay, you don't even need to go outside. There's a straight hallway that goes directly into the casino next door, and it is owned by Lotto Quebec. um, so the hotel is actually under the banner of a Hilton, but it is owned by the Lotto Quebec provincial government part of it. So technically, I am a provincial government worker, but I work under the banner. So we have to adhere by all of the standards that the Hilton tells us to, which is quite a lot. And we also have to follow the regulations set by the provincial government through the gambling association that we have through Lotto Quebec and everything. So it's really a very very tight knit um, uh, program, if you will, that we have to follow all these rules. And a lot of our clientels, whether we like it or not, that come to the hotel are gamblers. Now, this is another life. This is another slice of the pie that you will of clientele that we get that bring a particular interest to the hotel. So, like I said, we get it all. We get it from the bottom of the barrel all the way up to the very, very top. We get celebrities that come in. We have politicians that come in. But then again, we have that, if you get people that come off the streets as well, and that's another thing that we have problems with. Sometimes you get the best of people. I mean, I've seen people come in and it's just small families, and you get perfectly cleaned room almost as they leave. They tell you how much fun they've had. They come up to the front desk and leave wonderful comments like the staff was amazing, they love the pool, all that. But at the same time, you get that second, it could be Mr. Big Shot coming in, and he's been calling all through the night because he wants his mini bar filled up because he's had a rough day or a rough weekend, and he's getting drunk, and he's calling us at 3 o'clock in the morning demanding everything from the stars and the moon. So you got to be ready for anything.
Well,
And I
people
mean,
that go to a hotel is weird because the way that they leave a room is the way they like to reflect upon themselves. A lot of times they leave the room pretty clean.
mhm,
At least I work at a hotel it's old style. It's based on that. That's kind of its whole thing. Like the building's kind of pretty old. It's supposed to be like a vintage style type hotel. So a lot of there's nothing new like the Hilton would have. Like opening automatic doors is that's just not even in the book there.
mhm.
Um, when I
But
worked
that
there,
brings its own charm, though.
yeah, yeah, the roof leaks a lot too. When I was there, it was kind of annoying, and there's a lot of problems. I definitely think it was just mostly underkept. But we got a lot of old clientele, which was nice because during the winter you would get the same people that'd be like, "Oh, you're working on the holiday? Here you go," and they would give you like a huge bonus or something. Most of the time, they were pretty clean. The weirdest thing I think I've ever had to deal with was we would get elderly people that would shit in the trash can and then leave it
Oh my
out in
god.
front of their door. And then you're like, what the hell is that smell? And you're walking down the hallway and see just shit in the trash can. That was really disgusting. You had to deal with that a lot with people needing their emergency sheets changed just because of having to go to the bathroom. But even the kids were a little bit hectic too, but like, I could handle them because they're usually like college kids around my age. So like I'll walk in a room and they'll be like, "Oh, dude broke a bag of Doritos all over the floor. He needs you to go in there and vacuum up some chips or something." So I go up there with a vacuum and I'm like looking, I'm like, just look at him, I'm like, "How did this happen? You guys wasted a perfectly good bag of Doritos?" And like, "Yeah, sorry, bro. We were just getting hammered and it spilled bag of chips, man." And I'm like, you wasted a bag of fucking chips because you're hammered, and they just looked and start laughing. Like you can do that with them. You can be able to talk to them like that because they get it, and they
Certainly.
they tip you like, "You want a beer, bro?" I'm like, "I don't drink," and they're like, "Oh, but you want a beer? Why don't you chug it?" I was like, "Cause I'm fucking working." Like yeah, I don't want a beer. I'm sorry, I'd rather take money. So, but I mean, it's cool though because they'll offer like a slice of pizza. You'll be able to shoot the shit with them and stuff. I know that's when I first started my podcast, I had business cards printed out thinking that was going to be the best way to get people. So I would just be around my hotel, just tossing them like when I go into a room or something, put them on the thing or something so people could look it up. And that was fun too because some people would look it up and then like message you on like Instagram or Facebook like, "Hey, I saw this in the hotel room, thought it was pretty cool." And it was a good experience. But the weirdest people I ever see that really came in were our hotel would be rented out certain weeks or certain weekends. There would be the Girl Scouts. There would be the cheerleader girls that were like girls that are 15 or under. There's a scary problem about that because what does a young girl go through that turns her into a woman? You would come across a lot of bloody sheets, a lot, and that would be some scary shit where people are like, "You need to wear gloves." I'm like, "Oh God, oh God, like, how do you're around like 12 other girls in a room together, and how do you hide this? Like, how do you keep this secret from everybody?" And then you'd get the occasional these religious groups that would come in, priests. Those are the freakiest people I've ever met in my entire life. It's just a whole line of priests, but when you clean out their room, we've had alcoholics come to our hotel, but those priests drink way more. I mean, the head priest had 3 bottles of giant like bottles of Jack in his trash can and then 2 in the fridge that were halfway drunk. I was like, "Damn." And like people are just like, "Yeah, because they're not having sex and they're not, doing anything bad or illegal, so they drink. It's how they
Hmm.
kill their inner demons." I'm like, "Damn, you're just that pent up." It really shows how like crazy religion can be.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, it's funny because when people ask us, like, "Hey, you guys get a lot of groups coming in, eh? Like, do you have like a particular group of people that usually cause the most troubles?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, of course we do." And you wouldn't believe who it is. And to be honest, most of the time, it's lawyers, police officers, fire departments when they have like their like inaugural like balls or like Christmas parties or stuff like that, they're usually the worst.
Yeah, they're booze bags, man. Surprisingly, like a lot of those cops, like, but they would put their bottles up on like a shelf when they're empty, like stack them up, like if you were gonna throw them in like a recycle or something. But there
Yeah.
would be so many of them. It's like, holy crap, man! You'd be like pulling out trash bags upon trash bags out of these rooms, man. I don't know how many times, I've seen the weirdest stuff when it comes to the hotel business, man. And it's seen the groups of people and the type. I mean, the nuns are even a little bit weird too. Um, the college kids, they're the average ones. You get the crazy kids that come down here, but like, if I had to ask, like, your whole entire experience of working at a hotel, what is the worst moment you've had working there?
Worst moment. Let's be a little bit more specific here.
Okay,
Worst moment.
it can be like customer service wise. I'll give you an
Mhm.
example for me. My
Yeah.
first year at the hotel, we have a thing in our town called H2OI. So a bunch of kids using these riced out cars, like these Subarus, the Hondas, the Civics. They're all like souped up with giant spoilers on the back with the cammed out rims, and like where the car looks like it's straight on like bow legged or something. And one of these times I was in an elevator and I was coming down from the 11th floor, and a kid was driving one of his cars and tried to do like a burnout or something and messed up, and he bumped over the curb and ran right into a generator. And the generator exploded and the kid died. But I was in the elevator at the time and our whole power and our whole entire hotel shut off. The elevator dropped from the 11th floor all the way down to the 6th floor free fall. When I say that this was before they put in the safety in the elevators, we're in an old style hotel, so there was no safety in the elevators that I thought of. So I dropped from 11 to 6. Let me tell you something. You're at that moment in your life, you'll be gay. You'll do whatever you want. You don't care who's if there's someone in that elevator, they're getting fucked. Luckily, there was nobody in that elevator with me, and it dropped all the way down to 6. As soon as it hit 6, it slowly went down to 1. Dude, I've never felt my heart jump into my throat because if you're like me, it's at the bottom of that elevator is one giant needle that's like a stopper for the elevator that is right dead center in the middle of the elevator. And the first thing I thought of is that this thing free falls. Not only is the elevator going to crash and I might be severely hurt, but that spike might have a chance of going in my ass.
Yeah. No. That is very true. Okay. Well, I mean, if we take it from that point of view, the very worst thing I've ever experienced while working at the hotel was when I was actually still working in security. Um, I'd have to say there's going to be two because they are tied. I just could not pick one over the other. But the first one would be an elderly gentleman came to the hotel with his mistress that we found out later, and kind of went up to his room, popped a pill, started getting freaky. Came downstairs later on because he wasn't feeling too good and had a heart attack at the front desk and passed away. Um, the worst part is that we had to obviously, do first aid, and were pumping him, and then we had the medical staff come by help us. We did everything we could for him, and we got note that sadly he had passed away uh, due to complications at the hospital. Uh,
Whoa,
what?
wait, hold on a second. Is that the only death you've had at the hotel in your experience?
No,
Okay.
uh, no. Um, but it was one of the harder ones that we actually had to deal with because it was upon us. Like we had to react to it going in. But what the hardest thing was is that we had to, obviously tell his wife because he we knew that he was married and the lady that he was with was not his wife. So you pick up the phone and you call the wife who's at home and he's supposed to be on a business trip but he's actually a 30-minute drive away at a hotel. How do you explain that to her, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm very sorry, ma'am. He passed away and he was also cheating on you, it seems, probably for a few years now, but so that was one of the first ones that really hit hard. Directly had to deal with, had a pretty big impact on the staff that was there at the front desk. There were people that were sent home for emotional distress, et cetera, et cetera. The second one was actually kind of, it was really bad, but it was also comedic in its own way. And I'm not trying to seem like this super dark, sadistic fuck here, but um, we had a gentleman who was staying one night, and he had quite a lot to drink. Uh, Probably also had some other substances that we couldn't tell, but probably was having a very emotional, distressing situation, if you will, and decided that it would be a good idea to stab himself in the gut and then proceed to walk all the way outside through an emergency exit to take the bus to get to the hospital for help. So we originally had gotten a call saying that there was a giant streak of blood coming from a particular room, and he was bleeding quite a lot. So he was holding himself, but at the same time had his hand on the walls for support. And you could just imagine the follow the dotted trail of blood.
It's like The Walking Dead.
Yeah, pretty much. It looked like zombies had walked through the hallway, made their way down maybe 5 or 6 flights of stairs. Of course, the trail of blood following all the way outside through the emergency exit, all the way across the compound, if you will, that gets all the way across the street to the bus station where we found him sitting at the bus station, where we proceeded to call, paramedics and the police and everything else.
I think people don't really realize the kind of things you can see at a hotel. I think they just think it's so simple, like cleaning rooms and stuff. Like we've had a total, probably the 3 years I worked there, I think it was 3 or 4 deaths. Most of them, like I said, we live in it's a beach town, but we get elderly people that stay at this hotel a lot. So obviously it's the common like heart attack, passing away in your sleep or something.
Yeah.
But I remember my first year also with the elevator accident. Uh, I saw an ambulance out front of the building, and I was like, "What? Did some old person have a heart attack?" Like this was the first death, and I was there for. And I was like, "What? Did some person have a heart attack?" And like I was like, I'm the type of guy that when as soon as the guests leave the room, I'm the first one there to strip the room out so I can get all the sheets out and everything, so I can get my job done, so I don't have to worry about it later in the day. So everything's all like, everything's like just the cops are downstairs handling what's going on. I have no clue at this point that someone had died in the room. I heard the room was gone. It was on my floor. So I was like, hey, let's get the housekeeper, open it up. Housekeeper opens it up, walks over to her cart, starts loading up her cart. So I go into this room. I look at all these pizza boxes and everything. I'm grabbing all the trash and grabbing everything that could be considered evidence and throwing it inside of a trash bag and then taking it downstairs. Well, I had a cop come up to me and my supervisor came up to me and they said, Robbie, what room did you just go into? And I'm like, 703. They're like, okay, a woman had died in that room. And I said, what? Like, I just cleaned that whole room out. Like, what do you mean somebody died in there? She had apparently taken her sheets, wrapped it around her neck, and tied it to the balcony and then jumped and strangled herself. And I didn't know that. And the cops were like, "You touched everything that is evidence." I said, "What do you mean evidence if she killed herself?" He goes, "We don't know if she killed herself. She could have been murdered. And we need everything we need to know what was in that room and you threw it away. And now your fingerprints are all over the room. So now you're basically considered a suspect." And I'm like, holy shit, man. Like an old woman, how did she tie that around her neck and then jump off the thing? They go, she wasn't an old woman. She was 30 something years old. And that kind of let the cop know, like, okay, he obviously didn't kill her if he didn't know what her age was or something. That would have been something that might have slipped up and gave something to me. But I'm looking at him honestly, like, dude, I had no idea. I fucking walked right in that room, touched handprints on the walls. I turned the TV on. I sat down on the fucking bed for a minute. And like, I had no clue, dude. But that was the weirdest thing in the world, man, for me. It was a crazy experience. A lot of people don't realize that. Like, people in the hotel industry, it's a big sign of respect. First of all, you have to have obviously your morals about you if you work in the housekeeping industry, because I'm not saying I go through people's shit, but you see people's shit everywhere. You see, like, people leave their wallets out there. You have to be very trusting. I don't steal money, so that wasn't a thing. You see like goldfish crackers out. You see all these other things out. If someone had a butterscotch candy, I would take that just because if you had a whole tray of them, I'm like, I'm getting one of these butterscotch candies because you just can't pass up a butterscotch, man. Tell me, it's too good. But it's a crazy experience too, and that's definitely a weird job. I definitely don't like if you get older, I mean, it's gotta be hell on the body and hell on the knees, but it's you get to come across a lot, especially with dealing with the public, but you get to see them also in one of their most vulnerable points. It's like, when you're in a relationship with someone, you get that relationship perspective. You see the person that's always wearing makeup, always doing this, and then you guys decide to move in together and you wake up and you're next to a troll. Like, "Holy shit, what happened to your face?" It's like, "This is me without makeup." It's like, "Oh my god." And she's like, "Yeah," and then farts and then walks away. You're like, What happened? I didn't know this side of her." It's like that's what you see with people. You start to see their dirty stuff. You start to see, and you also see some good parts about people too.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I try. I mean, with the emotional battering that you get from a lot of clients, it's not for everyone. A lot of people can't handle being yelled at, being called every name in the book when things don't. People don't get their way, and it happens a lot in the hotel industry. I mean, and it's funny because one of the ones that we always laugh at work is, you get the person who calls you, let's say, day before Valentine's Day. I want to get a room. I want a reservation at the restaurant and blah blah blah. Well, what do you mean it's full? What do you mean it's full? I'm willing to pay good money to come and blah blah blah. And then they go off on their tirade, and you just got to sit there and you got to take it. And then after they're done screaming at you over the phone, you got to tell them again, "Sir, I'm very sorry, but the hotel's full and the restaurant's full. Oh, this is such shit service and blah blah blah." And you're like, "What do you want me to do? I
So
mean,
Valentine's Day, man.
it's
It's not like
Valentine's Day, you
yeah,
know?"
this isn't some last minute call bullshit. This is something you got to put in a reservation for. So, I mean, even during like Thanksgiving, Christmas, we are so booked. I mean, big events happening, ball parties, bar room parties, all these types of things going on. People can have their birthdays, having their weddings there. You get a whole room of like a whole giant family. They're just running up and down the halls, screaming and yelling and doing whatever, getting drunk. And it was cool because we get a lot of bachelorette parties. Bro, those are the funnest things to ever be involved with. Like we would get the let's say like the bride is up on the 12th floor or something, and then her whole 12th floor is all whatever 12 or 13 rooms that we have are all part of the party. So is the 11th floor, maybe the 10th floor. So it's a giant thing. And you go up there, they have inflatable dicks everywhere. I have a picture on my Instagram. It is a 10-foot tall inflatable penis, like a punching bag, like the ones you would get as a kid that you just sit there and sock, the ones that stand on the floor or something.
Yeah.
And, I set it down in our laundry room so everybody would come off the elevator and you'd have to come around a corner. So this giant inflatable penis would just slap you right in the face as soon as you came around the corner. But like we would pull out like, dude, alcohol was a huge thing. I'm not a drinker, so I would just throw it away or give it to somebody. But like they had like the injection needles filled with like Jello liquor that you would inject in your mouth, like you would baste a turkey with or something. You'd get those all in the rooms and stuff. And I would had so many like bachelorettes or whatever that would hit on me. They'd be wearing dick hats or something, having dick cupcakes, and I'm just looking at them like, damn, like y'all are hot, but shit, you got a dick on your head. I'm not gonna kiss you if you got a dick on your head. You know what I mean? It's like that type of thing, but it's definitely a weird and strange experience, and it's definitely one to learn from. I definitely recommend it as like a good job, but not one to typically stay into, I would guess, unless you're doing like reservations or something different, because it's a weird experience too, especially housekeeping in the kitchen is probably two of the hardest positions just because the amount of on top of people you are. I mean, you guys have a big priority in respectfulness when it comes to customer service, but when you're working with your fellow employees and you're around like pressuring conditions, pushing 800-pound linen carts and dealing with like 100-degree laundry rooms or 100-degree kitchen, you guys don't stay happy forever. You guys end up yelling at each other and it becomes very stressful. And, it is a good job to kind of learn, get to see what people are like, without, I guess, the public eye, this thing that we display out into the world, this persona of, oh, I own like 50 jets and 20 cars and there's no flaw about me. It's like, no, you have Captain America underwear. Okay. I don't think you have any jets.
Yeah, and I mean, like working security at a hotel, you see all you see everything, and I mean, I'm not just talking about the the clientele. I mean, you see, you go through the kitchen, you see what they have to go through. You go through the party rooms, the big meetings, and how everything is set up, and the deliveries, and how everything goes from A to Z, and it's crazy. I mean, you don't get to see that from other perspectives, and I find that I've been really lucky in that sense that I was able to get a good understanding of how everything ran before I actually moved to being in reservations. So I have the utmost respect for people. I understand what they go through, especially when I call them for things like, if I call housekeeping for something and they tell me, yeah, it'll be like 2 minutes. I understand, like they have to go down, they got to get that stuff, they got to make sure that, they got everything ready. They've got other clients, so it's very tedious. But again, I think I've been really lucky to have that insight so that I understand what everyone goes through, and to be respectful, not just because they're your employees or your co-employees, but just to know that what they go through on a daily basis. And it's just, you want them to understand your perspective as well, so that they can give you that same amount of respect when they ask something of you, or when you ask something of them.
Exactly. So when and where did you decide to join this passion project with the voice acting? I know you're doing reservations now. Is this all, is that how it started? Is just you started to realize you have a very soothing voice, or did it just come from something else?
It actually came from when I was a child. I was always a bit of a goofball uh, kid. I still am. I mean, like, I crack jokes all the time. I make a mockery of myself to make others laugh. I love to make others laugh. And it pretty much started from one of my idols as a kid. I grew up watching pretty much everything that was Robin Williams.
Oh yeah, man, you're hitting right on the head with me, dude. I love Robin Williams.
And I think where it started was probably watching Disney's Aladdin for the first time and hearing the genie. And now that I'm older, and like I've done research on his career and everything that he's done in Aladdin, a lot of what he did was not even scripted. It was just him going off on a tangent and doing his stuff. He was always renowned for being this kooky, like super funny, like spontaneous individual.
He's Patch Adams, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where it started. I absolutely loved it. Um, I always had a certain stage fright. I tried to do like small theater type things like on stage, and I always had a fear that when I was on stage that I was going to fuck up, and I couldn't really do it, even though I was told several times by like teachers and other students that I had like really really good talent when it came to acting. So you match that with doing all sorts of weird voices and being, the clown in class and stuff like that. And I think that's really where it came from. And it became a passion for me. And I did small things over the years, but never something really like big, like a major production or anything like that. Obviously, it's still mostly indie stuff, but I have lent my voice out to quite a few projects over the years, ranging from doing monster voices to just doing regular old me.
You got to give me some of these voices here because, like I was telling you before, shout out to Mark, Madman Mark. I would call him. He does the voice of Wolverine. You can check out his Instagram. I'll link that in here too. Had to get him a plug. He's the only person I think I've ever had a conversation with where I was Christopher Walken, he was Wolverine, and we met in a bar. I mean, like I said, that is something, it was all improv. And I kind of want to hear, what impressions do you have? Like, if you're going to give me a monster one, give me a good monster. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'll do something if you want me to do an impression.
Oh boy. Right off the top of my head like that. I really haven't done too many impressions of certain things. I usually come up with my own uh voice for them. I mean, the one that I had done quite a long time ago was I was doing like a kind of horror theme thing, and they asked me if I could do like a werewolf. And I was like, okay, well, I could try doing that. So I was basically sitting in front of a mirror looking at myself, and I was thinking, how do I do a werewolf, like. So I started messing around with growls, and it looked absolutely ridiculous, and I was mostly laughing at myself most of the time in front of the mirror. So I started playing around with it, like really getting like a guttural, like,
That
noise
that's
to it.
that snarl. It was a good snarl. It sounds a lot like I heard that same thing. It gave me a little bit of anxiety when you did that. When I was a kid, my dad snored like that. He goes like super loud. I'm like, Jesus, man.
Well, that's what you try not to sound like, it's because the thing with voiceover work is you don't have any expressions, so all your expression has to come through your voice. So
Well,
if you can't deliver that.
yeah, you hear the voice though. It sounds like you're putting so much emphasis in it. And if you literally showed a video of someone doing your impressions of like your face, like you actually doing them, recording them, your face is showing the emotion of it because that's how you get the sound for it.
Well, there are some people that will just belch out lines and not show any emotion towards it. And it's not because they're good or bad. It's just some people will get in front of a microphone, they will get into their character, they'll do their character, and they'll read lines, okay? And they'll put their own emotion into their voice. But there are others who will act in front of their microphone. Like, perfect example is wow, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank right now. Mark Hamill, sorry. Mark Hamill, like, if you've ever seen, there's a particular video on YouTube that I always go to because it's absolutely amazing to watch him do this. He's in the booth doing the Joker, and he like twists himself, and you can see the evil expression on his face as he's doing the Joker, and he's got his hands up in the air, and he's acting, but no one can see him at the end of the day. It's all within his voice. And I'm someone like that. Like, when I'm doing my lines for the podcast, or like other projects and stuff like that, I'm flailing about, and I'm putting myself in the character, and I'm doing these facial expressions, and no one can see me, you know. But I feel like without doing that, I can't properly do the character.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me when I do an impression. If I do like my Christopher Walken or if I do a Joker impression, I look like a madman. And it's only because like I need to get in the character, the feel for it. I need to, you can see my face doing some Christopher Walken impressions on other podcasts and stuff. And I go into full character like he does. I have the mannerisms, the type of, the jawline, the facial expressions that you try and move into. Even when I do like my Don Corleone impression or something like respect is a business best served with a side and a glass of justice. Like
That's
that.
pretty good. I like
Like,
it.
yeah, my whole jaw is shoved forward, like the bottom part of it, to where it looks like I have like a lisp or I have some type of like deformality in my teeth or something. And that's just to get that sound and that thing. And it's needed too because that can, like, I couldn't do that without moving my jaw forward like that. And if you have one in your arsenal or some impressions or some types of things that you like to do voice acting wise, give me some here.
Like, particular voices that I would like to do.
Yeah, like if for your let's drop the podcast for instance, like it's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the Chad story, the Fallout 76, right?
That's correct. I do quite a few different voices for. It's called the Chad Fallout 76 story, um, and it revolves around Fallout 76. Haha, getting
Dude, one of
the
my favorite games. Literally, I've been asking Robert Solomon, shout out to him of Uncanny Earth. I've been asking him for a long time, see if I could get a part in your guys' podcast a little bit, because I kind of wanted to always do an audiobook one, because I'm a giant fan of Fallout, especially. I mean, I played them all. I mean, in my studio right now, I'm looking at the special posters for the character, the strength, perception, intelligence. They're all put up on my wall and stuff.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I almost got that one. I have quite a lot of little Fallout tidbits here around my computer desk and in my room and
I
stuff
mean,
like
you're
that.
talking to
So
a guy that drove to 2 hours away to a Target at 4 o'clock in the morning to when they opened up at 6 a.m. to get Nuka-Cola. And as soon as I walked in, a dude walked out with like 30 bottles of it and bought it all. And I was so pissed. But
oh
you end up finding out it's just Blue Jones soda with a funky label on it. It's a little bit kind of messed up. But that's my buddy's favorite game. So me and him kind of bond over that, playing New Vegas at night. Me and him would look up on YouTube all like the history and the little details about all the games and stuff. And I've never played Fallout 76. I heard it was terrible, at least when it first came out, and I heard it got good. But I just, I never. I'm still like, even yesterday, I was playing New Vegas or something, my all-time favorite one. I like the post-apocalyptic scene, the building of the
mhm.
character, the game style of stuff. But like, do you do any of the radio impressions? Like, I've listened to maybe like a quick couple minutes of your guys' podcast. Like I said, I am interested, and if you guys need anybody, but like when you're talking to, like, you turn on the radio or something, it's like, "Welcome to Galaxy Radio with Star Dog in the morning," and it's like doing like that, or it's doing some weird voice impression. I love that, dude.
Well, the thing is like I've always tried to do a type of, like, that golden radio voice, but I feel like I can't do it justice, and I would rather not tarnish that, because, like, as a kid, I grew up listening to Casey Kasem, and he had that very, very specific tone of voice, and people like to make fun of it, and it's kind of like iconic if you know who he is. um but it's just like, how was it? He'd always go on these like monologues, and it felt so um like traditional in a way, like, if you pictured someone's voice like for a radio, that would be it. And we would always talk about it and stuff like that, and he'd go on and be like, and now you'll be listening to a song from 1965, and he would set the mood, and you were like, okay, I'm ready, let's do this. But when it comes to the podcast, when it, I would rather do very out of the way character voices. When I had first well, let's start with this. The first time I had heard about the podcast, it actually wasn't even a podcast. It was a story that was being written on Facebook by Kenneth Vigu, the creator of the podcast. Great guy. I love him to death. And he would do these like little intro stories, a couple of paragraphs, like, day 45 of my isolation, blah blah blah, I ran into a death claw, it tried to maul my face, but I was able to get away. And it it garnished like a lot of attention. Like, these were really great, they were funny. He made these new characters. You would follow Simon and Chad throughout his little adventures. And there it was just all the time, and every time I would see one, I would go through it and be like, yes, all right, he's got a new one, read it, have a few chuckles, and be like, man, I really love this. And one day he was like, you know what, this is getting quite a lot of attention, I think I'm gonna make a podcast out of this. Like, would anyone be interested in doing voice work for the podcast? And I was like, holy shit, yes, I would. There was a very particular character that showed up in his little stories, by the name of Peter Ennis, Mr. P. Ennis. And
Good God, man.
basically, he
Okay. All right. You gotta let that one stick for a minute. For the audience members out there, I want you to sound it out now. PNS. Okay, guys. Just sound that one out in your head if you don't get it.
Yeah, it's P.ENNIS.
Yeah,
So
just like huge Wang. Is there a Hugh Wang there?
exactly. And basically, it was a mutation that Simon got, and the character was brought to life. And he's basically comedic relief. And it was one of the characters that um, he wanted to have a voice actor for. And I was like, yes, I want to voice a scorched, monstrous talking penis. I feel like this is my calling. I need to do this. And so basically that's how it started. We got on or I got onto the podcast along with a fantastic crew. We've become such good friends. uh, we were able to meet in Boston. A lot of us were for Bethesda Game Days, where we had our live production with Bethesda after we were contacted by them to do a live episode, which was absolutely insane. Like we were jumping off walls when we heard about this, so we kind of went into overdrive in doing a show for that, and we had a ton of fun. And it's become our own little family now. So yeah, no, in the end,
Well,
all the thanks to Kenny. I mean, it's
it sounds
crazy.
like an amazing bonding experience, but you gotta give me one of these impressions you do on this thing, man. You gotta give me at least. Do you do a ghoul? Do you do what typically do you, I guess, provide?
Right now, I've done two voices that you've heard on the podcast. There will be two characters coming later that I can't talk about right now, but will be pretty important characters that I will voice. The one that I am most accustomed to right now, people that know my voice, is for the character that started with the live show at Bethesda Game Days, which was the Attorney General. Um, Malcolm Fletcher. He basically this big Southern gentleman, and he stands there in the courtroom. And, Your Honor, I would like to make sure that this person is deemed guilty.
That reminds me of like I picture Colonel Sanders as a lawyer in a courtroom. He's like, I do declare that this bucket of chicken is incredibly good with all my herbs and spices.
Well, the thing is like when I was first thinking of the voice for Fletcher, we didn't want him to sound like super redneck hillbilly type of Southern accent. Just the where he's from, but without being like, oh well, geez, he's the typical blah blah blah.
Yeah, he's not the typical Tex guy that's like, yeah, them down there by the tractor down there. I went over there to get me a horse and like sounds like Hank Hill type thing, like a little of what's his name?
Boomhauer.
Yeah, Boomhauer.
Yo, man, man, to come down there. I'm
Yeah,
gonna whoop his
come
ass,
on,
man. I'll tell him, man.
take it, man. Come on down there, man. You know what I'm saying, man? It's like, what the fuck did you just tell me?
Yeah, so it's a character that I've been having quite a little fun doing. I cannot wait for the next two characters to be introduced, because those are going to be some very important characters to the story. At the same time, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun to be doing those voices. So I can't wait. Um, Another one that I ended up doing was for the Halloween episode. Actually, it was the old man in the vault. The crew of kids slash dumbasses, end up telling a story about how they were doing trick or treating inside the vault before the whole opening of the vault happened, and they went out into the wasteland. Um, they went into a restricted area in the vault where the residents weren't supposed to be going because it was abandoned, and people said that it was haunted and bad things happened down there. You're not supposed to go down there. So I played the old man in the vault, which basically is this old interesting dude. And um, they run into him and they start telling him stories and stuff like that, and he's talking to them like, well, I don't know any particular stories about that, but if you would like to regale about something from the 1800s, or maybe how soccer was started using human skulls, maybe I could introduce you to a new story.
It's funny. Sounds like a little bit of Walter Cronkite in there. A little bit of
Yeah.
that deep kind of voice to it. But like when you're studying a character, it's cool too because when you get to create one of these characters too, you got to look at like people are gonna bond to certain people based on what they are, their characteristics, their personalities. It's like when you're watching a movie for the first time. Most people want to pick the badass character, the gunslinger, Clint Eastwood type. So it's like what type of thing if you were trying to think of a wastelander or a survivalist that is badass, has a gun, kind of like a mercenary that nobody wants to fuck with and can handle himself in his own situations. You got to think of like a badass voice to it. Is he going to be calm? Is he going to talk at all?
Hmm.
um then you look at like let's see if I was going to do a voice of a character that's like a Clint Eastwood type of like, do you feel lucky, punk? Like that whole, like you want to have that kind of slow, kind of scratchy little bit of voice. And if you want to do someone that smokes cigarettes all day, like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like you got the whole like kind of like messed up throat. And if I could do the whole old woman from SpongeBob, I don't know if you've ever seen the chocolate episode, the woman that comes out like looks like she's severely burned in the chair.
Oh God, I mean, I don't think I've watched SpongeBob in years,
She's
but
like,
like I've watched some of it, yeah.
she's like, what? What are they selling? They're selling chocolates. What? They're selling chocolates. Oh, chocolate. I remember when they first invented it. I always hated it. Like you do, you have that kind of weird scratchiness in the throat or something, and then like I'll shoot you off. Like if I was gonna do, like a wastelander or a mercenary that like got hit in the head with like a pipe, and he's got a little bit of like I guess a little bit of mentally challenged added to it from that, maybe like a slow brain or something. I would do my Christopher Walken impression. I'd be like, "Oh my, this is a tragic news. I don't know where to go in the vault. I seem to have locked the keys inside there." Like do something of that sort. Like it's fun doing it too because like you can, for me, like a script is very hard. I like to improv it. Usually if I do like a comic book thing, someone's like, can you read me a line from a comic book? I'm like, okay, just give me whatever the line is. I want to turn it into my own as well. I can go with the script, but I find like I'm very good with no preparation to it, just hopping right into it. Because once you get that character flow going, it's so simple and flawless that you don't even have to really think about it.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like, um, what I used to say is like I have voice Tourette's in a way. Like when I'm out with like friends or like back in the day when I used to actually drink, um, I would have voice Tourette's. We'd be sitting in the bar and we'd just be shooting the shit and just doing all sorts of stuff, and I'd just be switching from one voice to another, and people would just be like, how the hell do you do that?" And that's what I'd say. I have voice Tourette's. Like I will go on for a while, and I'll just start changing my voice and just want to make people laugh. And um, I think it's always been like a really fun thing to do. It gets people laughing again, so it's just something that's always stuck with me. And to be able to do that to a wide range of like a larger audience, I find is absolutely wonderful. It's super fun, and you meet all these wonderful people. And I mean, if I look back at like our podcast, for example, the story that Kenny created, I think what is really, really special about it is you look at these, you look at movies and stuff like that, or video games, and you have those stereotypical, like, he's the hero. He's going to sound like this. He's going to sound like a macho dude, the big freaking bulky badass, like that's got like this big ass shotgun or like a rocket launcher. He's going to sound like this Arnold
Or
Schwarzenegger
it's
or,
the
something
opposite.
like that.
He sounds like a quiet guy. Like we call that guy over there. His name's Tiny. I was like, whoa, he's super huge. It's like you walk up to him like, how you doing, man? It's like, "Oh, hi." It's like, "Oh, shit, I did not expect that from you, man. You have literally a bullet inside of your bullet hole." Like, that's what you like, you look like a man, but you come off with
Mhm.
this non-aggressive voice. He's like, "That's why I don't talk." It's like, "Okay, I get it. I get it." And that's what's interesting too, and that's why I find so much fun in voice acting because it's a way to escape. It's like going to a Comic Con or something where people dress up as somebody else. You want to have fun. You don't want to be inside of your own skin for a little bit. You want to relax and be like one of the heroes or somebody you idolize. I think that's
Right.
awesome. And
And
especially when you're doing like voice acting with friends and stuff, like that's got to be the funnest experience in the world. Like there's got to be so many bloopers that go behind all that in production with you guys, like just trying to do a voice and someone's like someone just cracks a joke or something, you immediately break out of character. I mean, like my buddy gets pissed off at me because like I'll be doing impressions, like you say, voice Tourette's. That's a great way of putting it because I do the same thing. I'll be like going out to eat and I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna do an impression this whole time and see if I can just keep it the whole entire time. Like, what do you mean? Waiter comes up, goes, "Hey, what would you like to order?" I'm like, "Aye, let me get one of these cheeseburgers." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, and I'll switch, and then randomly I'll end up losing it later if I end up forgetting about it. Like, "What happened to your accent?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I lost it. Like, I am from Canada, eh? Like, I
Mhm.
lost my accent, eh? I don't know where. Would you like a powdered jelly? Like something like that. Like stupid, but it's stuff you got to work on too. It's practicing it like a skill. I mean, I one impression that my buddy's like, if you worked on it hard enough, you would be able to get is a Jerry Seinfeld, and I freaking hate Jerry Seinfeld. I don't care if he hears this. I don't care. Sorry, man. You have the nasaliest voice I have ever heard. It's like, I mean, come on. I mean, in the airplane, when they offer you the chicken or the fish, which one do you choose? I don't know. It's like, motherfucker, just pick one. Pick the peanuts. I don't care.
Yeah, no, I was never a big fan of Seinfeld. I just thought that he had quite the annoying voice as well. But I mean, to each their own, right?
Yeah, and then like you look at Mark Wahlberg with that, like accents from different places. I'm from Baltimore. Well, I'm close to Baltimore, Maryland, so we have a bit of what we would call a Southern drawl on it. Like you say Monday, you say Tuesday, you see like coming out on Wednesdays. Like when we say Baltimore, and people are like, "What are you saying, Baltimore?" It's Baltimore, not Baltimore. It's like, oh, you have that little bit of an accent to it, and like we'll be talking like Mark Wahlberg from being from like he sounds like a little bit of a Boston. "Hey everybody, I'm Mark Wahlberg. How you guys doing? I'm Mark. I'm over here from Boston." Like, he's got that quiet tone, but he's got that kind of demeanor to him. Has a little bit more of a Boston drawl to him. Like, give me a pastrami on rye. Like, that's stuff you need to kind of look up too. Like, especially being in the hotel industry, coming across so many people from different walks of life, people from different states, people from different countries, coming over. You get to see everybody's accent, and it's hard sometimes too because what's weird about our minds is some people will fall into an impression and have an accent when that's not their accent. Like if you're around a bunch of Asian heritage people,
Mhm.
you'll immediately start being like, "Let me get the Chinese chicken," and it sounds like it's being racist, but it's not. It's because our minds adapt to be like things that are around our surroundings. So you're immediately picking up somebody else's accent. I mean, I worked with someone that was Irish, and he was like, "I think I broke me fucking foot," and this was like an accident we had up getting in an accident and hurting his foot. And
Yeah.
he's like, "I think I broke my fucking foot." And I'll be talking to him like, "Hey, you want to go down and get the drink by the pub?" And he's like, "Why are you talking like that?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, you're making fun of me. Stop fucking making fun of me." I'm like, "I'm not trying to. It just happens. I click to it because I've been talking to you for so long. I want to connect with you. And I want to be your friend."
I mean, like that's one thing I really love about about traveling for one thing is you see all the different um mannerisms, you see the different accents. It's just it's awesome. I love it. Like for me, for example, I was my first language is French. I am a French Canadian, and I was raised perfectly bilingual. Just by choice, my parents, wanted to have as many options for me, like growing up, that I could either like speak fluent French or speak fluent English, and it kind of like resonated in me. Like I wanted to learn other languages, so like when I was growing up I took like Spanish classes. I'm slowly making my way into wanting to learn Swedish. I've looked at Japanese a little bit, and stuff like that. And I just love other cultures. And like, for example, when we went to Boston, inevitable, we heard that Boston accent absolutely everywhere. I freaking loved it. Just got so much of it. But like, I've traveled quite a bit. In the United States, in Canada. Unfortunately, I've never actually been on a plane before, so I've never been able to go overseas and see those other cultures and accents that come from those places that I would like to go, such as Ireland, Japan, et cetera, et cetera. But like, I've heard that Brooklyn accent. I've heard that accent from like Vermont, Pennsylvania, stuff like that. I've been to Boston. I've heard that one. I've been to Chicago. You go to Detroit. It's all these different. It's subtle. Someone who's not versed in it or hasn't really heard the difference will go, well, yeah, it's all English. Say that again to someone from like London, England, and say, "Oh yeah, it's English." No, no, dude, it's not the same. Like you can hear it, and I find it's awesome. I love it. I don't know what it is. I just love it.
Yeah, it's nice to see kind of the differences too a little bit. I mean, if you look at all these different states, it's part of the same country, even in the US, but they're so completely different the way they sound, the way they talk. It's always something like I worked with a lot of people from New York and they had that kind of like strong, authoritative speaking way. And it's weird to see because it's like we're not even that far apart. It's not like we're on the other side of the world or something. We're not Australia to America. It's New York to Maryland. It's like, how did he get that difference? But it's like all depends on how people speak the shortened language. My cousin's from Hawaii. He speaks a language called Pidgin, which is like if you ask him, "Hey man, are you hungry?" He'd be like, "No, I'm full on aloha, thank you." You'd be like, "What did you just say to me?" He says, "I am full on aloha, thank you." And it's like, just say you're fucking full, man. What does aloha have to do with anything? Doesn't that mean hello and goodbye? He just looks at you like, "What, mom?" Like he just cuts all his stuff. Like, "I got you, brother." Like sounds like he's Jamaican, and I'm like, dude, what is happening? We're related. I don't know how you turned into this thing, but it's enjoyable. It's fun. It's one of my favorite things about voice impressions because it is an art. It is a talent. A lot of people have that natural voice, and my parents worked in radio, so I understood what you were saying about like that having that cadence to it too. Um, that's something when I started the podcast. Was I going to do a welcome to another episode of the podcast? Was I going to do something like that, or was I just going to talk? And I'm like, hang on a second. I'm talking to people for an hour, maybe 2 hours. I definitely don't want to have to hold that impression up the whole entire time because I hear my parents on radio, and then I hear my parents speak, and I'm like, you sound nothing like that. Like I can tell that radio voice straight up the mile. You have the person like, "You're listening to the beach radio, and we're gonna play the smooth sounds of the ocean." And it's like, did someone just take your emotion out of you or something? It's
Well,
weird.
you've got to like doing what you do, right? If you're forcing yourself to take on this persona while you're doing your work, and you don't want to keep it up, or you're not having fun keeping it up, there's no point in doing it because you're just going to hate yourself for it. So why bother? If you're more comfortable being in your own skin and your own voice, do that. It'll just work out better for you in the end.
Exactly. And I think that's it's important too. And I can tell just the way you've talked about it too that you really enjoy doing this podcast and being involved in it too. And it seems like it's been so much fun to do as much as it is to kind of hear the episodes come together as well. And I appreciate that, man, because it's interesting. It's something like I said for a while I heard about it, and I was always curious to talk to one of you guys and get your thoughts on it. And I really appreciate you coming out and doing the podcast, man.
It's my pleasure. I mean, I love doing this stuff. I love reaching out to other podcasts, reaching out to other voice actors. I've met, like I said earlier, I've met so many amazing people in this line of work over the years, and it's always um, it's always a fun time getting to listen to their story, how they came about doing it, what they like about it, what it's opened up for them in their life. Some people just do it as a side project and they just love doing it. They don't look at it as a monetary type of thing. Uh, like for me right now, I've done some monetary work in voice acting, but I love the indie scene. Um, of course, I mean, I would absolutely love to one day be in a Bethesda game, or to say like, "Hey, did you know that new like World of Warcraft character? That I did that. That was me." You know, like that would be a fucking dream come true. Like if I could be in the next like Elder Scrolls and be like, "Hey, remember that quest that you got from that dude? Did you know I voiced him? Yeah, it was pretty awesome, right?" You know, and then people would be like, "What? No fucking way, man."
You're
So
famous, bro.
yeah, and it's not even about being famous. It's
It's just
just
nice to be recognized too. It's like, holy crap, you
yeah.
created something and somebody's listening to it. That's what I meant by that. Like I'll be saying something and like someone will be like, You sound like really familiar." I'm like, I don't know. And like, I think I've heard you like at my gym or something." I'm like, yeah. I'm like, my owner of my gym plays my podcast sometimes as music in the gym sometimes, just like kind of listen to, because people like hearing some of the conversations of it too. And it gets weird because then someone's like, "Oh, dude, that's your podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. Like, dude, that's dope, man. I'd love to be on." I'm like, "Yeah, it's cool, man. Just hit me up." That type of thing. It's nice. It makes you feel like you did something and it's going somewhere too. It's like watching a baby start to walk.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like one thing that I really get out of it is I love the reaction people get, whether it be positive or negative. Um, I just love it when someone reacts to like either my voice or something I do. You get people that enjoy your work. It feels good, and at the same time, like especially with the bullshit that's going on now with the whole pandemic and everything, people are looking more and more to fill their time. And I always recommend the podcast. Like, I mean, if you guys are, especially a lot of my friends who are like gamers and stuff like that, who like the whole Fallout universe, like I tell them, like, look, if you guys want to, here's the podcast. Uh, we have like 12 episodes out now. So it's like each episode is about an hour, of your time. So if you got time to spend, or go for it, man. You'll love it. It's funny. It's interactive. You'll get um, those little inside jokes that we do, the referencing the game, or stuff that goes on. One thing that we love to do is like kind of poke fun at like glitches and stuff like that. Because hey, let's face it. Bethesda games, all games have glitches. You find bugs and stuff like that, and we kind of plug those in as little tidbits of fun. And it's not to like belittle the game or the company and everything like that. We've gotten feedback from people at the company that absolutely love it. They think it's hilarious. Pete Hines absolutely loves the characters. He listens to it, and to know that like people from Bethesda, from a game that we're referencing in our podcast, listens to our podcast and enjoys it, is absolutely insane. And like, you can't see it right now, but I am grinning from ear to ear. It's surreal. It's a dream, really.
And I appreciate you, like I said, coming out and doing the podcast, Kevin. Now, why don't you plug that podcast there? Plug anything you want to plug so people can find your awesome content, man, and hear those beautiful voices serenading us in the game we all love.
Hell yeah. So if you guys if you love that whole uh, Fallout scene, that post-apocalyptic. We do have a podcast. It's called Chad, a Fallout 76 story. You can find it on pretty much every single platform where you can find a podcast, whether it be Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's on what's that one there for Apple, or not Apple, but oh geez, Google and all that. There's so many I can't even remember them all. But pretty much anywhere where you can find a podcast. We have a Twitter, we have a Facebook page. So yeah, just write down Chad Fallout 76 story. You'll find it.
Now, do you want to wrap us out with a nice little ending or outro?
Uh, wow, on the spot again. Jeez, I'm so bad at these.
It's all good. Look, I'll give us something like, "This has been an episode with Kevin from the Fallout 76 podcast." Now he's gonna wrap us up with an ending. I don't know how he's gonna do. I can only stall as much as my car can when I'm trying to go to the store.
And now I want to thank you for having me out here. This is Malcolm Fletcher. This is a great podcast, the Out of the Blank podcast. I had a super fun day today, and you make sure that you stay on the good side of the law, or you will be seeing my footprint on your ass in that courtroom.